Phil, I don't know why this is hard. People have already
No,
voted.
I get that. I understand that. They haven't been counted in most votes. They haven't been counted in most states. They haven't been counted in most states, so he still can't say because it hasn't happened yet. There can be togetherness, folks. It is possible for people to agree without being disagreeable, and that's another reason why you also come here to the Tomfoolery Show as well. Since you're here, folks, hit that thumbs up button. You know it's the right thing to do. While you're here, hit or subscribe. Why the hell not? You can keep up with all the crazy tomfoolery here.
So, real quick, Urasama said there's definitely widespread voter fraud. Now, I know that there's been numerous instances popping up where they've said that there's evidence of voter fraud. But I also know that the FBI recently came out and said that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. So I think the difference here is
happened yet.
What?
For an event that hasn't happened yet, the election hasn't happened yet. How can you say there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud when it hasn't happened yet?
We've been voting here we've been voting here for the last month and a half. There's in-person voting. There's been mail-in voting already. Like, we've been doing this for a while. Almost every day I pass.
I'm well aware that people are sending in ballots, but I'm saying the actual counting, the actual confirmation in several states, and the actual going to the polls hasn't actually happened yet. It's a little preemptive.
Right. So if you're saying that Urasama can't say that there is widespread voter fraud because the election hasn't happened yet?
Well, I'm saying, you were just saying this has been completely debunked. The FBI said that.
I didn't say
How could the FBI say that? How could the FBI say there's no, what was the statistic you put forward? Saying the FBI said what about voter fraud exactly?
I wasn't done even with my sentence yet. What I was saying was the FBI has come out and said that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. But I think that the difference that you would have to put up here is what is widespread, one. Two, how many of the cases that we've heard of have been investigated and have turned out to be false or real or, one or the other. And then three, if what we would consider even now, to be a massive amount of voter fraud, if it turns out that we have almost double the amount of voters in this election to what we normally have, then what would be considered widespread could be a smaller number in this one. So it's all kind of, and especially once the election actually happens as well, then we could find even more or find even less.
Well, where do they get their stats from? I guess would be one question. And then who's responsible for actually investigating it? Is it going to be the states or is it going to be the federal?
The FBI is in charge of it.
Every year, states are responsible for their elections, right?
Mm-hmm.
The states themselves. So, so where are they getting the stats? You said the FBI is responsible for investigating them. And then how much are they investigating these? I want to say I heard a stat that they don't investigate even a quarter of the reports that they get. So I would be curious to see really the numbers and the data broken down. And I think every election year that comes out, the FBI says, no, there's no proof of fraud. There's no proof of fraud.
Election fraud is kind of like embezzlement. I've always noticed, you'll see the statistics for embezzlement are incredibly low. Look at how very little embezzlement actually happens on Wall Street. And that's all of us know, there's more embezzlement that happens than is ever actually discovered. That's kind of the point of it. So it's we've only found this little teeny little bit of election fraud. That's kind of the point of any fraudulent undertaking, is to not be detected doing it. So I'm very skeptical, especially in this era of mass mail-in voting, where like I said on the Dog and Chicken Show, there's like, what was it? Like almost 80 million ballots have already been sent in. And just in statistics, just if you're going by statistics alone, you know the signatures or something's going to be off with at least 5 million of them. So you know that it's going to come down to a judge. Are we going to accept these ballots that are shady, or are we going to throw out these 5 million non-matching signature ballots? It's going to come down to something like that, because you know that of the mail-in ballots, there is a chunk that just aren't going to meet the standard to actually pass through. So that's going to be the very interesting point, is because, yes, I know several people who have had things mailed to them about, do you need a mail-in ballot? And it's also asking for mail-in ballots from people who lived there previously. And there's a lot of chances for people to vote more than once. And if you get some sort of over-the-top Trumper, some TDS suffering social justice warrior who thinks that this is it, oh my God, the end is nigh if we don't, they might just be tempted to take that extra step. And that's why I'm saying, go to your polling station, folks. If you can at all do it, go to your physical polling location to vote. That'll be the way to ensure your vote counts and has the least possible amount of chicanery that goes along with it, because there's almost nobody has custody of your ballots. So that is what I will keep imploring people to do. Go vote. I don't even give a fuck if you want to vote for Biden. Just go vote at the physical polling locations.
Okay. All right. So this right here says FBI Director Christopher Wray said Thursday that the Bureau has not seen evidence of widespread voting fraud, an assertion that undercuts President Donald Trump's recent warnings. We have not seen historically any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise, Wray told the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Wray's remarks come a day after Trump again claimed without evidence that mail-in voting is susceptible to massive fraud.
Well, I am glad Director Wray has the ability to see into the future. There is no evidence of voter fraud of this event that hasn't happened yet. Like, that is quite the power, man. He needs to be higher than director of the FBI. Shit, he needs to be like head of the universe.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because the event hasn't happened yet. You
people
can't say
have
there's
already
no
voted.
Evidence at all. There's no
people
evidence
have already
at all.
voted.
And there's about to be a hell of a lot more that are about to vote. Most of them actually are about to vote in person. So he's saying there's no way, no evidence at all. So he's trying to predict an event that hasn't happened yet. So I get it. We got to try and give people a little bit of assurance. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. We've got the system under control. But when you're trying to say there's no evidence that this event that happens in the future has anything wrong with it, I'm sorry. That is flawed analysis. I'm sorry.
People, Phil, I don't know why this is hard. People have already voted.
I get that. I understand that. They haven't been counted in most votes.
Hold on.
They haven't been counted in most states.
Hold on.
They haven't been counted in most states, so he still can't say it because it hasn't happened yet.
Every time I talk, you interrupt me because you don't want this to get out. Okay. People have already voted. Therefore, they already have committed voter fraud.
They haven't counted the votes in most states.
Stop saying that. That has nothing to do with it.
They haven't counted the most votes in most states. Yes or no?
That has nothing. No, that has nothing to do with it. That's completely irrelevant.
That would be how you tell if there's fraud or not. Actually, yes, when you actually count the votes and decide are the signatures right or not, that is actually how you determine whether there's fraud. So the event has not happened yet. So I'm so happy that Christopher Wray has the power of clairvoyance, but I'm still going to be a little skeptical.
Okay, so if a bunch of people mail in ballots and somebody throws them in the dark, stop. If a bunch of people mail in ballots and somebody picks them up and throws them in the trash, do you not consider that mail-in voting fraud?
Of course.
Okay, so there is a huge chance for there to be fraud already. If most people have already voted,
so go to the polling place.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Stop pivoting. We're talking about whether or not Christopher Wray's statement can be correct if he says that there currently is no evidence of voter fraud. That is obviously not saying I can see into the future and tell that it's never going to happen.
That's kind of what he's saying.
It is not.
That's kind of what he's saying. There's no evidence of the thing that's happening, that's going to happen in the future. Well, that's in the
Exactly.
second
Short.
paragraph. I'm talking about his first statement here, where he's saying Wray said Thursday that the Bureau has not seen evidence of widespread voting fraud, an assertion that undercuts President Donald Trump's recent warnings. There is no way for him to know that. That is not a statement that he can falsify or prove in one way or another. So it's just
There's
a word
no way
salad
for him
fluff.
to tell if he has seen
The
widespread
future.
voter
No,
fraud.
there's no way.
That's the past. That's the past, Phil. That is the past. Stop saying
They
the
haven't
future.
counted the votes yet, man. That's the future.
Oh my goodness. You just said that throwing away ballots would be mail-in voter fraud, right? There
Sure.
is a
That's a
chance
different
for
event, but if we're going to talk, yes, that's a
No.
different event, but yes.
No, the question is whether or not there is mail-in voter fraud, whether or not it has already happened. Is there a chance that mail-in voter fraud could have already happened with people
Of
throwing
course.
them away? Okay, so then that's it.
Of
That's
course.
it. Like,
The fact
that's
that he
all
didn't
matters.
detect it doesn't matter. But the fact that he didn't detect a fraudulent action doesn't really prove or
matters
disprove his
according
statement.
to his
And it
statement.
doesn't really, and again, it still doesn't prove the fact that we haven't counted these votes yet, so he doesn't know how widespread or not widespread it is. So I'm sorry.
He
I get
didn't
it.
say-
He's not clairvoyant.
You
So
don't
we
get it.
will see what happens on election day.
You keep taking this statement as if he said mail-in voter fraud did not happen whatsoever, and it will not happen whatsoever. That is not what he said. Like,
Pull it
not
back up
even
again. Pull up
close.
his statement again.
Okay.
FBI Director Chris Wray said Thursday that the Bureau has not seen evidence of widespread voter fraud. So he hasn't seen evidence of it.
That's
An
the past.
assertion that undercuts President Trump's recent warning. And he hasn't seen evidence of something that hasn't happened yet. Our U.S. election. The votes haven't been counted
do you
in
keep
most
doing
of the
that?
states.
Why do you keep doing that?
Because
Nobody
it's
said
relevant.
anything about the future.
Because it's relevant, and that's what he's talking about, is the future is...
It's called a pivot.
No,
If
he
you
said-
can't- It's a pivot.
not.
If he says it hasn't happened yet, and you say, well, it could happen in the future, that's a pivot. That's not responding to anything he said.
that's not what I'm
that
saying,
it-
no.
Then what are you saying?
I'm saying he has no ability to
The
tell
Russians
the
did
future. I'm saying he's
But
not
you-
clairvoyant. He has no ability to tell the future. That's what
But
I've been
his
saying.
statement is past. It means that it hasn't happened. As of right now, he has not seen evidence of it. That
Widespread
doesn't mean
voting fraud.
it's going to happen. That does not mean that it will not happen. That doesn't mean any of those things. You are extrapolating something ridiculous from that statement.
Nah, but anyhow. So, and then we have not seen. Oh, well, I was going to keep reading. Sheesh. But
Okay, I'll pull it back up.
we have not seen historically any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether by mail or otherwise. That is talking about the past. Wray's remarks come a day after Trump claimed without any evidence that mail-in voting is susceptible to massive fraud. So he is talking about a future event here because Trump's talking about our upcoming election.
All right. Well, Brendan, go ahead and shout out your channel, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. And it's Dads Worldwide. You can find us on all the socials and anywhere you can find a podcast.
Yeah,
So-
it's definitely a good show, guys. Go check it out.
Thank you.
I've listened to it a couple of times. It's a lot of fun.
And with Tom, I'm also on Big Buckin' Entertainment with Phil there. And we'll be on election night. So
Awesome. All right, man.
thanks again. Really appreciate it. Have a
Yeah,
good night.
appreciate it. See you.